I'll just show you a few things not to do. If you can, try not to plant a plant in a rock, especially a nice sandstone rock like this one, because as it grows, it'll either not grow and lose all its roots, or it'll crack the rock. So what you really want to do is grow it over the rock with the roots growing down the sides. This is actually a very good demonstration of how the rock cracks. It doesn't look too bad actually, well, apart from the top. But have a look at that later on, and as I said, it tells you what not to do. This one I'll have to try and encourage you to produce some decent roots. What you do need is a rock that's interesting, if you can. Find one that's got some interesting shapes to it. This one has got sort of a funny, odd shape. It may not stand, actually it does stand up nicely like that. Or you could sit it like that. It's often better, if you're going to have a rock that's tall, don't sit your plant right on top of it. It doesn't look natural. If it's low and flat, you can sit it on top. But if it's tall and skinny, it looks unnatural if it's sitting on top of the rock. Put it at least a third of the height of the rock down from the top. And then you can actually train it as a cascade or semi-cascade or something like that. What I've got here is just a little old juniper that I had in a pot that didn't do too well. It's probably a good idea, this is not, to let them dry out a little bit so it's easy to get the soil off and get rid of the weeds before you start. I wouldn't worry about wiring it and training it, because when you're doing root over rock, you want the plant to pretty much grow away really freely and vigorously, because the faster it grows, the bigger it grows, the more those roots will cling. And the faster those roots will grow and thicken up. I don't know what these roots are like, I haven't actually looked, and the soil's very wet because we've had some really intensely wet weather, but I figured this will do, and I did actually put gloves in, and yeah. I never remember gloves. Okay. These are not as good as, say, the Japanese maples and the like, because they've got very fibrousy roots. If you've got a lot of fibrous roots such as these, sometimes it's a good idea to get a little clump of them, twist them together. Those roots will still grow if they're twisted together, but then they'll thicken up and grow into a single root mass. So you can do that and have some little clumps of roots coming down the sides. If you've got some big intense roots, you can put those down. The other thing, you want to make sure you don't have any roots, any tap roots right in the middle, because it wants to go over the rock. With this one, because it's not very tall, I am going to sit it on the top. It's got a nice little dent here, a piece going down there, a section where I can take the roots down the side here, and probably down this side there. So it's 3 different directions I can take the roots. With root over rock, we usually use what we call muck. Now, I didn't actually have any muck, so I had to make something up. And what I used was, I had an old pot full of, that had been grown up in the Dandenongs in that heavy red clay soil. I've made up the muck with that. I need to add a little bit extra moisture to it. It's quite crumbly here at the moment, but once it's wet, it's quite obviously clay. Anything that you can make a long narrow sausage out of it has got a high percentage of clay in it. Okay? So any clay will do. I think I like this red loam clay because there's a lot of nutrient in it, and it will hold a bit. This is made out of the red loam clay. It's got blood and bone in it, because it mixes in better than dynamic lifter, and it's got copper peat in it. Some people will use clay and cow manure and either peat or sphagnum moss. Any of that sort of stuff will do. But basically you want to get your muck and push it onto the rock in the areas where you plan to put the roots. If it's a good clay, it will actually cling to the rock, which it is doing quite nicely. This provides something to press the roots into. It provides a little bit of nutrient for those roots to grow into and cling to, and encourages them to send the roots down. With something like cow manure or blood and bone, that's almost like a fertiliser, and it will actually give it something to make it want to stick and make it want to grow onto the rock. It's a very textural sort of job, this one. It's almost like potting. And there's a certain amount of fun in actually feeling it squishing between your fingers. So much so that I should suggest you try it one day. That's okay. Have you ever seen kids who didn't want to play mud and muck? I haven't. Ever seen kids who didn't like playing mud pies? Okay. It's not quite as stable as I'd like on the ground, but it will stand by itself. Once it's established on the rock, you'll have soil underneath it to a certain amount, and that will keep it going anyway. If the soil was dry, it would knock off a bit more cleanly and leave these roots free. I have got one great big root there, which is almost in the middle, but I think it will actually go down to one side. The other thing is, try and decide how you want the tree to actually angle. I'm going to try and have that so that it's angling down over the rock. And to do that, I want to put extra muck underneath it. Just in that spot. That's better. Okay. Sometimes the roots don't want to stay where you put them. The muck will actually help them stay where you want them to go. Come on, you behave. But to that end, we also use string. I think string is preferable because it will eventually rot down. Okay, so you can see it's actually is clinging to the rock. The muck has held the roots down fairly well. Cork has been used there to push that fairly big one into the muck, but then it doesn't hurt to put a little bit more muck on top in place of the soil mixture, because eventually we're going to cover it with glad wrap.